Welcome to the BCSD Learning and Leading Podcast. I'm Ryan Lanigan, the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction here at the Brockport Central School District. And today's episode is about Future Ready, Career-Connected Learning for Post-Secondary Success. Welcome to everyone to today's conversation. At the heart of our discussion is a critical focus for our district, ensuring that every student at BCSD is equipped for the evolving demands of the modern workforce. Career-connected learning, it's a word you're going to hear. It's not just a buzzword. It's a vital approach that links classroom experiences with real-world skills, paving the way for meaningful post-secondary opportunities. Here at BCSD, this commitment is deeply aligned with our Portraits with a Purpose framework, which strives to cultivate purposeful, adaptable, and empowered learners. By connecting classroom learning to future careers, we aim to nurture not only the academic achievement, but also the broader qualities, critical thinking, collaboration, perseverance, and civic engagement that our Portraits with Purpose envisions for every Brockport graduate. This integrated mindset ensures that our students are not only prepared to graduate, but fully equipped to thrive in college, career, and to be contributors to not only their communities, but the global world. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
My name is Brandon Broughton. I'm your co-host, and today we're tackling the topics that's the topic that's shaping the future of education, career-connected learning. And if you haven't heard a lot about it yet, trust me, you're going to be, because this is something that really is top of mind for a lot of our secondary students and a lot of our high schools. I want to echo a lot of what Ryan said, and I just want to add that career-connected learning also gives our students invaluable exposure to the vast array of opportunities that exist beyond high school. I really want to connect them to what their future could look like. It's about helping them discover their passions, understand the available pathways available to them, and start to build confidence to pursue their goals, and understand that, certain pathways they take helps to get them certain steps down the road that we hope they'll start to take advantage of as they start to understand that future focused thinking that we're hoping our students start to really internalize. By bridging the gap between what's taught in our classrooms and the reality of the workforce, we're empowering students to make more informed choices about their future and ensuring that they're ready for whatever path they choose. And just kind of building that out is a big part of what we're doing right now in the district.
Well, we're here to explore these trends, and we have some experts. So our goal today is really to look at what do employers say students need, how can schools evolve as learning organizations, and we have great guests that are joining us today. I'd like to welcome Shauna Guru-Kurtz, who's the Workforce Development Leader at Monroe 2 Orleans BOCES. Mark Siciliano, who's the CEO of Left Bank Consulting. He's a national consultant and thought leader on innovation and education. Emily Langen, who is the Acting Director and Management Partner for Education and Business for MACNY, which is the Manufacturing Association of Central New York. And Mark Mutton, who is our Brockport Central School District Career-Based Learning Coordinator and the facilitator of our BEX Early College High School. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for having
All
me.
right, so
All-star cast for today's podcast. We're coming out with a
The
bang.
Toronto Blue Jays lineup right here. That's what it is.
All right, so here we go. Let's get started. Shauna, starting with you, from your perspective at BOCES, what's driving the urgency for career-connected learning right now?
So I think, I think it's the needs in the community and in the region. Industry needs is driving a lot of this. I think things have changed quite a bit. And so the trades right now are a really hot place to be. And so I think, a lot of that is coming out of just the regional need, and for us to think about school differently and think about career pathways and as being a forefront. It's not just about college preparation, but we really have to put career at the forefront and prepare students for all of the industry needs that are out there.
Thank you.
Emily, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
What are employers saying about micro-credentials and stackable certifications from what you're hearing? That's something that we're kind of developing and thinking about a lot here in the district.
Yeah, definitely. Employers are looking very much for those industry recognized credentials or micro credentials in certain fields over degrees. There are certain fields that you're always going to have to, go on and get that higher ed degree. But lots of the kind of trades or more hands-on type of industries, very much looking for those stackable credentials. One thing that we are finding too is that some employers in the kind of non-traditional trades are starting to look at these things as well. So, for example, at MACNY, we're a group sponsor for registered apprenticeship, and typically those are manufacturing focused, thinking like CNC machinist, welder, those types of careers. But we're actually starting to see companies looking at putting their employees through apprenticeships in things like customer service, data analytics. So those types of kind of non-traditional trades, employers are starting to expand their open mind to increasing opportunities for individuals to get things in the industry credentialing space that may not have been in the traditional higher ed path.
That's pretty exciting to hear because that leans into some of the work we're doing here in the district. And I'm going to then turn this one to Mark Siciliano from Left Bank. Mark, you've worked with different districts and organizations all across the country, including ours, on rethinking how schools prepare students for the future. Thinking about what Emily just said, and from your vantage point, what are the shifts we need to make to stay relevant in a rapidly changing world?
Thanks for having me, and excited to talk about this topic that Brandon mentioned. As if you haven't heard about it, you're going to hear about it soon enough. And where I think Brockport has really positioned itself as a leader in this space is that you're a learning organization. I think you've been looking at what's happening, what has happened, how are you building on things? What are the assets out there that you want to pull in, as well as where were some of the gaps in this previous work. And so, the key piece around career connected learning in Brockport, at least from my perspective, and where it's a little different from what other districts are doing, is you're building this into a comprehensive model. You didn't just embrace career connected learning as a standalone thing. It's part of your Portraits with Purpose model. And that includes a lot of other factors. You're aligning this to the Portrait of a Graduate work. You're making sure that kids are early on understanding their strengths and leaning into the strengths as they kind of think about their options. And you're also looking at career connected learning, not as a very narrow focused linear progression, but as multiple pathways for kids to be exposed to. And Ryan, I've heard you say this, so I'll share it and give you credit for it. It's certainly great if we help kids understand who they want to be and what they want to do. But it's also great if we're helping them understand what it is they don't want to do. And the earlier that they can figure that out, gives them much better access to the things that they want to pursue in a post-secondary environment. So to just, connect this all again back to some general themes, I think in Brockport, it's helping kids have exposure, multiple learning experiences, both in school and out of school early on, that help them think about career connections, show them that they can be part of multiple pathways, not narrowly limiting them to what's possible. And then as they progress and matriculate through school, they can certainly get deeper into some of those areas and start to focus a little bit more singularly on things that matter. But I'll stop there for now, and how at least Brockport is doing this in ways that other districts are not.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I mean, we really do believe strongly that we want our kids to explore multiple pathways and to really think about what they might want to do. And honestly, you're right. I have said that. And the reason for that is so often people leave their high school experience with this idea that they know exactly what they want to do. They get out there and then all of a sudden, they're in the middle of, and if it is college, it may not be college, it could be something else. But if it is college and you have spent a lot of money to start to head towards a pathway to a career, realizing that maybe it's not what you thought it was or what you want to do. And then it makes it very difficult, especially with the financial demands of today's educational landscape, to pivot. And our goal is to make sure that our students have access to those things and get to explore those early on. So that is important.
Really good point. Really good point. I'd like to welcome our last panelist, Mark Mutton. Welcome, Mark.
Last but not least.
Of course not. Of course not. Mark, based on your experience, this is kind of a new thing here and a different way of thinking about high school a little bit. So coordinating career-based learning, what are you finding to be some of the challenges that you're seeing in aligning our traditional school programs with this rapidly changing need that employers are having? And how are we addressing kind of matching the way we've traditionally done school with some of these more innovative ideas that we're trying to connect with our career-connected learning initiatives?
Wow, great question. I think that it's something that you almost have to break down into about a half-hour answer for each area. So I'll try to be somewhat quick in what we're trying to do here. It's definitely an educational paradigm shift. It's something that it's not normal for an educational institution like a high school to be looking at the workplace as a possible place of learning. Okay, I am not a traditional teacher. I've been teaching at Brockport for 4 years. I was in corporate for a number of years doing project management along with other things. And what you find out is that when you enter into a particular entity, they have their ways of doing things, right? And so with education, it's no different. I also worked in higher ed as well, and they have some of the same issues. The academia is a very, very big part of what the school does. It wouldn't, naturally, that's not a bad thing. That's not a terrible thing. What's happening though is the workforce is changing. And when I look at some of my colleagues and friends and even family who own businesses, who are trying to be successful in business, who are looking for people to work that are good workers, that will show up and all the rest, that's becoming more and more difficult. And so there's some serious factors that are being created out there. So for example, soft skills, just understanding soft skills and understanding customer service. That sounds like, why would we teach that in high school? Well, how can you interact with someone if you don't know how to talk with someone and have a conversation in a way that's meaningful and appropriate? And so it's just as an example, I know that collaboration is really key in this when it comes to the new part of career connected learning and trying to take the business world, I'm in the business department, so taking the business world and bringing it into the school in a different way. I'm currently with about 25 plus students doing a career internship program with the idea of expanding that over the next 3 to 5 years to at least 100. And trying to see that actually come to fruition is going to take some work, not just from the business department, but also from some of the other departments. For example, when we start to look at students who want to put together a business plan because they want to be an entrepreneur, or they want to work for a nursing, for some sort of hospital as a nurse, those are all things that are great, and I can set those up. But they also need the background skills. They need to know how to write. They need to know how to read well. They need to know how to take instruction. They need to know how to talk with a person. All those kinds of things are really important. And so a collaborative idea is, well, let's say we're doing a business proposal. How great would it be to have, say, the English department and the business department create something that works together for the betterment of the student, where they can actually learn how to write a proposal, and they will get the business aspect of it, but they will also receive the English part of it, the English development part of it, to the grammar and how to actually write well and all the rest, and really create some really great, I would say, feedback for the student. Being in corporate, if you can't write, you've got some problems because there's reports to write, there's things that you have to calculate, there's number crunching, just think about it. That's English, math, science, one. So it's a great thing to be able to see how it's changing really the face of education here at Brockport in a very positive way. We're just at the brink of it. It's just the start of it.
That's great. Somebody once said to me, the only place where we separate those skills out is in school. It's the only time that we separate into you chunk it out into 40 or 60 minute, 70-minute blocks where you do it in isolation. So in the real world, that's where it's at. And it's funny. So this is called our career connected learning, but it's really connected learning, right? This is really our focus is how are we connecting all of the pieces of our learning ecosystem and bringing it together so that everyone sees the value in what everybody's role within that ecosystem is, to make sure we're hitting the mark and that students are leaving us really with those portrait of a graduate attributes that New York State is starting to promote. We really felt strongly about that even back in 23 and put a survey out to our families, and our community was very steadfast on what they felt they wanted a Brockport graduate to look like. And I will tell you, I did wipe some sweat off my brow when I did realize that the New York State framework aligned very nicely with what our community had said, because that was good. That might have made for some interesting conversation, but those are the
Ryan,
skills, right?
If you don't mind me interrupting really quick, Ryan, something too that just sparked me, and something that Emily said earlier, the whole idea of being able to understand like the micro credentialing and so on. There are opportunities for students with just a high school degree. If we can help them to be successful in high school. It's not just about being able to go to college. I think that's a great thing. It's not for everyone. It wasn't for me. I'm a product of that. I went to college later in life, but thankfully I went after I knew what I wanted to do, and that's going to happen with students today as well, right? And right now, high school diplomas will get you into a place in Rochester where with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, or in with Bausch and Lomb as an apprentice. Where as long as you can do math and do some other things that are a part of your education in high school, you can start out as an apprentice, and within 2 to 3 years, you're making close to 6 figures as an electrical engineer apprentice or some other type of title that is just an amazing thing. So I just wanted to share that really quick about how that changes the face of what we do as well.
And Mark, if I could I add to that just a little bit?
Yeah,
okay,
go ahead,
unless you want to ask a
lean
question.
right into you, Shauna, to really
perfect.
kind of
All
talk about the next question I was going to ask. Mark was like, set me right up there, because the next
That's
question
awesome.
was going to asking you what is happening in CTE programs at Signal where education is headed. So the floor is yours. Follow up on that.
So I mean, we are seeing a ton of momentum in, stackable credentials, work-based learning. Students are earning college credits college credits in high school and credentials and industry certifications while still in high school. Our programs are aligned to regional workforce needs like advanced manufacturing, healthcare, IT. So, we're aligned to all of these different industry sectors. But when you spoke, Mark, I just think a good thing when you talk about apprenticeship as a pathway, that can start in high school. So one of the things to just know is that if a student goes into a registered apprenticeship post high school, post secondary, they can receive credit for some of the work that they've done in high school to count towards their related instruction for apprenticeship. So it really is a very good pathway to start building within CTE programs this pre-apprenticeship type of model, which leads direct entry. Actually, Emily, you're shaking your head, right? Leads right into some of these, registered apprenticeships that places like MACNY and RTMA, they sponsor a bunch of these. So we have to do things differently and make this a little bit easier for students to understand, how their high school leads directly to post-secondary, and also to help the parents understand, how that happens. And also, what is our role for middle school students, right? Like, what is our role to start earlier and help, like, even plant some of those seeds in middle school so that we're doing some early, early exposure.
Yeah, let's build on that, Emily. MACNY works closely with industry. What trends are you seeing in the workforce development and employer expectations that kind of tie in with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things that have already been kind of covered, but definitely a need for what we've traditionally called soft skills, but we're trying to call them more power skills or professionalism skills, because they really aren't soft. They're one of the more important things that we're hearing from employers. Just showing up on time, coming back after the lunch break, those types of things, being teachable and really willing to learn. As an 18-year-old, you might think you know everything, but that's not always the case. So really just an eagerness to kind of learn more. Communication skills, problem solving, and definitely math. And that is across the board. Kind of touched on it earlier, but for manufacturing with measuring, we also work with healthcare programs that they talk about if you convert, a medication from an adult to a child, you get that wrong, that's, has real life consequences. So really just kind of putting all of those kind of skills in front of students. But one thing we're also hearing from employers is that, again, they can teach all of these, like, kind of the more hard skills or technical skills, or the kind of how they work in their workplace to somebody, but they need individuals who are just, again, willing to learn, excited to come to work. And consistent, again, feedback is just being teachable, especially just starting out in a new career, and not knowing necessarily that this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, but knowing that you're going to learn something from this opportunity, and just being a sponge as much as possible.
Awesome. So Mark Siciliano, thinking about this stuff and these skills, how to embed that into curriculum, but even beyond the curriculum, like, what systematic changes do you see schools making to respond to these trends? So you heard what Mark and Emily and Shauna just said. Like, how are we as schools supposed to respond to these trends, and how are leadership teams rethinking structures, partnerships, and even the definition of what this successfully looks like in school? Because as a school administrator for a long time, graduation used to be everything, and it was the ceiling, and now I actually feel like graduation is the floor, and it's really, what are we doing for our students beyond graduation?
Yeah, and I'm eventually gonna get to the question directly, but I want to share something that I think will provide some good context for it. It's certainly something that we are all familiar with, and just about anyone in general is familiar with typical school as we think of it. Right? You go to school and you get grades, and you accumulate those grades, and eventually when you're in high school, those grades mean a little bit more because now they bear credit for you, and those grades also have points associated with them, and then that becomes your GPA. So that's the typical way we kind of, I think of it as currency, right? That's the currency of school. What we've missed as a educational system is all of the learning that's happening outside of those in-school moments. And there's so many rich opportunities. Ryan, you were kind of talking about this ecosystem of all of the learning that's out there. Well, where I'm seeing some shifts, and this is certainly something that's part of Brockport's Career Connecting Learning model, is we're not just looking at coursework that happens during the school day as the singular defining piece for students to think about their careers or their post-secondary pursuits. We're thinking about that in combination with extracurricular opportunities, after school clubs, summer programming. It's all of those rich experiences that become part of career connected learning as well, especially when you start to make sure that you're validating that learning through micro-credentials or badges. So we're looking at the entire ecosystem or landscape of learning in Brockport as pulling from, what others are trying to do in other communities where they may have a larger focus on out of school time only, a larger focus on in school. We're looking at it as the combination of all of those learning experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Mark, from our career-based learning coordinator perspective, what are some of the innovative approaches that we're doing to try to implement opportunities for our students to connect classroom learning with that real-world career experience?
So, just this is the first year for me of this particular role. So I feel like I'm not sure I've got everything going yet, but I think what's really important is even like with the internships, those are really important for people in the classroom, helping them to understand the importance of what they do and how that actually kind of puts it together outside the classroom, as Mark has said. I have a couple of students that I know they're going to be extremely successful. And why do I know that? Because their work ethic is unbelievable. They're going to school, they're taking all kinds of classes, they're working 2 jobs, they're also playing a sport, and they are just knocking it out of the park, literally, to use a World Series phrase right now. But to your point, Brandon, it's really important for us to really look at the different innovations that are offered. so that we are relevant to the workplace. For example, AI, I'll just throw that out there as the elephant in the room, knowing that that's going to be an integral part of what we do, helping them to understand basic business models and understanding of business processes. Not because they're all going to go into business, but they need to understand how things work. And so if we can take some of those models and put them into place so that as we, take, say, a internship program and say, where do you want to go? What would you like to do? I think it was Emily that said something about there are people that they know what they want to do, and there's some that don't want to do certain things. We want that to be a level playing field for students that can say, this is 108 hours for a whole year. You may not go there, this one place, for the entire year, because you might find out halfway through, this is not what you want to do. And that's okay. And so what we will do is we will monitor that as we go to find out what is it that you're really enjoying. And if there's something else that can either be added to it or needs to be changed to a different entity, that's the place to do it. My brother went to SUNY Potsdam, Crane School of Music, loved it, very, very, very good student. Went into music education, and his senior year he had to go and do a student teaching. He found out the very first week in middle school he hated every single minute of it, and that's not what he wanted to do. And to the point of everyone here, he was too late. It was too late for him in the sense of to turn around unless he wanted to spend X more dollars. We want to be able to prepare students early so that they get as many opportunities and repetitions to talk like a coach, as many reps as possible, to be able to see what they do well, how they can improve, or somehow pivot from what they're doing to something else. I forget who said it, but it was really important in the sense of we have to give students the ability to learn the fundamentals and the foundational pieces, but we also have to help them learn how to fail. And I don't mean fail as a grade. I mean fail in the processes of doing something that maybe they're interested in, trying to figure it out, and they either don't do well at it and come to the realization that they need to do something else, or they find out, hey, this is not exactly what I want. I'm not sure I want to do this, but robotics, man, this is really, really cool. I would really like to try that out and give them those opportunities. I hope that answers your question.
No, getting kids in that learning pit. We talked about that with our grading group yesterday. We want kids to get down there, try to figure things out, fail a little bit, and learn from those experiences, because it's a lot more of a richer experience than just being successful and cruising along.
Sure.
Sometimes you don't learn as much from that.
Absolutely not. So just for our listeners thinking about, I know we've talked about some high-end things. So Emily and Shauna, from your roles in the worlds you both live in, we talk about things like stackable credentials and credential ladder, and what does it mean to get a credential, or potentially what we may be talking more and more here about at Brockport in the future is digital badging and earning credentials for attribute skills. Can you kind of talk to our listeners about what that actually means and what the value is in that, and how students can leverage that to future opportunities?
I can talk about it from a CTE program standpoint, like how we kind of think about it. I mean, the first piece is really building the partnerships with the industry so that we know what credentials are relevant for students. We like to build CTE programs, and I always say like the 3 pillars of CTE. One is a technical pillar, and so you have credentials or industry certifications that someone can achieve for achieving some of those technical skills. And then we have an academic pillar, because there's integrated academics into CTE classes. And one of the things that we've started to look at is use of WorkKeys assessments and what's called the National Career Readiness Certificate, which indicates that someone has a cognitive academic ability to have on-the-job success. And so WorkKeys and the NCRC is tied to over 23,000 occupations And so that gives you like a digital badge. And then the other are how you work and employability skills. So I think that, the use and also like from a financial literacy standpoint, when you start making money, how do you use your money? And so like the use of integrating all of that content together and connecting all of that content, and then having a credential or a badge that represents that you've achieved that, I think and then putting it on your LinkedIn account to
Mhm.
show that you have those,
Mhm.
that you've achieved that. Those are all really important things, I think, from a program standpoint, when you build CTE programs. I don't know, Emily, if you want to kind of add to some of that.
Yeah, I can kind of add from the
Mhm.
kind of industry perspective
Mhm.
side. So definitely the industry recognize, because we're connecting with industry every day, and so things are changing. AI was mentioned, so that's certainly something that is going to be again integrated more and more with employers. But kind of on these kind of employability skills, or like those power skills, those are great opportunities for students to learn how to talk about themselves. So when they're working on their resume and starting the interview process, if they may have not had a kind of typical job before, or if they're working like as a babysitter or something like that, they might not think that they'd have a very strong resume. But these kinds of badging and micro credentials give students an opportunity to talk about what they're really interested in, how they went through the credentialing process, and persevered, got through, and got that badge at the end. But then it also gives them opportunities to talk about those strengths that they have, being a hard worker, all those types of things that employers are really looking for. So when they see a resume come through that has all these badges that are listing these things that they're very much looking for in an employee, those resumes, rise to the top. So I think those are just great opportunities for students to kind of, again, build up their portfolio in a way of speaking of all these ways that they're learning how to be a great future employee.
That's really exciting for us to hear, because we have put a lot of work in, and we are starting to move towards building these credential opportunities for students. Our real belief system here is in Brockport that every student has a story to tell, and it's our job as the school district to help them tell their unique story. And so when we think about that, we are trying to move beyond the traditional metrics and starting to really focus in on identity, voice, and vision for every student here. So when you say that those things matter, and we really want to make sure that our students, and not just in CTE, but in any potential career pathway beyond high school, that they're able to showcase their brand. They're building their brand with us. Who are they? We take our students through assessments that help them learn about their individual strengths. We are then leveraging those to help our students explore careers. And then we are heading towards an entire credentialing ladder for our students, so that they can then build these credentials and be able to speak about things that maybe, instead of just saying I'm a hard worker, they actually start to learn, okay, I'm actually a critical thinker, and I do this by X, Y, and Z, where we're helping them be able to speak more intelligently about it in a more quantified way. Mark, I know you've been helping us as a district to build this framework and structure. Thoughts on what we're hearing from Shauna and Emily, and what you're thinking about what we need to continue to be doing and where we're at?
It's certainly exciting to hear that there's value and that there's utility in what we're designing, because we want to be designing with the end in mind, knowing that the students are going to leave Brockport with something that has value to themselves, to the community, to employers. So that's exciting for us to know, for you to confirm that or validate that. I think that's always been our assumption, looking at research and talking to folks, but hearing that is very validating. It's also this idea of the credentialing ladder that we're designing, that trying to put as much metadata as possible into what is represented by those badges. So I think there's been work in digital badging over the years, and in some cases there have been very general badges that have been given that may be very well intentioned, but didn't serve a purpose. So we're trying to learn from some of that and build on it, so that when a student earns a credential, there's skills that are baked into that. There's content. There are things that are both, whether the skills are durable or technical. There's that combination, because we want that badge to have meaning. And then it's not just the singular badge; it's the compilation of many badges, the portfolio that you've all been talking about. We want our kids to walk away with a portfolio and a digital wallet that really does describe their journey and starts to create a version of who they are and who they want to be and what they're passionate about. But again, it's the metadata that we've been taking very seriously, because it's also helping us put kids on these multiple trajectories based on what one experience can do to open doors for them elsewhere. And so would love to continue to hear more about your work in the field with employers as we think about the metadata that matters most in some of those badges.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things as a learning organization that we're very much interested in here in Brockport is bringing folks together to collaborate around this work, because in isolation, we may not come up with great ways in which to help our kids move forward in the way we would all want, but with our efficacy and working collaboratively as a think group around that, just looking at the diverse backgrounds of all of us on this call and how we got on this podcast and what we bring to the table, just the conversation starts to percolate those ideas and thoughts of how we continue to grow and improve as a learning organization. So kind of the last question where we want to go today is, I'm going to ask this for everybody at the table, but how can we continue to evolve as a learning organization? How do we continue to evolve and grow and meet our students with what they need moving forward? Because our goal here is to make sure that every student here has access and options when they leave us. And how do we make sure that happens?
I can start. I think schools need to see themselves as part of the larger workforce development system. And I don't know if we've always done that. I think we have to develop expertise in the schools around workforce development, which is what we're doing. But we kind of have a long ways to go in that, and just, so building like some of those partnerships and putting that at the forefront of our mission, to prepare students for, post-secondary, but also to know what's going on within the larger workforce development system, so that when we're building programs, our programs are aligned to an area where there's a demand for people. And so I think that that's really important, is that we're not just building programs for the sake of building programs, but it's connected to a larger workforce development and economic development need.
And we agree. So just to highlight some of the things we have going on. So we do provide our students with a strength assessment where they learn about their individual strengths. But not only do the kids learn about that, we are starting to gather data around our cohorts of students. Last year, our freshmen that took this survey, because they take it all in ninth grade and they take a freshman seminar course where they really stretch out who they are. We found out that 42% of our now 10th grade cohort, their number one strength is in the relationship building area. So when you start to look at those kind of things, the school district, I think to your point, Shauna, we're starting to look at what courses, what programs, what offerings, what opportunities do we have if we have a large population of our students that have that type of a strength in relationship building, and what careers those align to. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's human services, education and training, health sciences, for example, hospitality, so we're starting to, it makes us think and be on our toes. And the thing that we're going to implement next year in our district is a sophomore seminar, which is really going to help our students dive a little deeper into, I now know what my strengths are and what I'm good at. I'm starting to learn about the attributes that every graduate should have that we're hearing from our state and the employers are saying that I need to know about and be able to demonstrate to be able to secure a job or an acceptance to a university, military, or trade school. And letting them explore some of the careers linked to the things that they have passions and interests about. So I think that to hear that is great. What else? What do we got? Everybody
Can I
else?
connect to that too?
Yep.
And there's some common themes here that I think I'm hearing that are already part of what you've been thinking about, Ryan and Brandon, in this design, and I know where you're headed. Um, to Shauna's point, right? It's kind of opening up access for students to who are they learning from. I think oftentimes school districts just assume that it's the teachers alone who are providing these experiences. I think Brockport's really embraced this idea through what you just mentioned, Ryan, that we want our students from Brockport out into the community. We want employers, industry partners, community partners, other adults working alongside our teachers who are giving our kids these rich experiences. It's not just the role of the teacher. We're not just limiting it to the role of the teacher, because the teacher can't do all of that, nor should they. And they've always been asked to, I think, do it. And we're saying there's a role that a teacher plays, but the community as an adult as well can provide that. And then the other piece that is, I think, really part of this long-term design in Brockport, as I understand it, is you're helping kids see that they're on a journey. And this journey doesn't end when they graduate as the goal. Like you said it, Ryan, that's the floor, right?
Mhm.
This journey is about lifelong learning, the pursuit of that, and where are they going to go? It's highly unlikely that a student graduates from Brockport and is in a single career for 30 years. Highly unlikely. So how are we helping kids recognize they're going to have multiple jobs? They're going to do multiple things, and the preparation for that journey is what K-12 schooling is about, or should be about. It wasn't what it used to be. I think Brockport is moving in the direction to say, this is what K-12 schooling is about. We're preparing you for this lifelong journey.
Mark, I totally agree with that. And I think if you use the example of when you're a kid and the first time you ever went to the community pool and it has a diving board. And the one we had was a small one, and then they had a real tall one. It's like nobody who was my age at 10 years old wanted to go off the tall one yet because we weren't ready. But really, that's what we're doing, is we're preparing the students for, getting used to the diving boards per se, and knowing that regardless of the height, it isn't going to matter. The relationships are really important, Shauna. That I'm just echoing some things that I've heard that I think are so important with building relationships with the students, but also building relationships outside. In corporate, it's not unusual to network with all kinds of different places and say, how are they doing what we're doing? And what can we take away and glean from them to get better at what we're trying to attempt to do in our culture where we're at? How does that fit the framework for what we're doing? And so if we can partner with local businesses and corporations in the Rochester area, if we can align some of our curriculum goals in our school with what we're attempting to do to make our students a more well-rounded student and a citizen as well, I think that you start with a small build and you just keep going on from there, and the rest takes care of itself. I really do. And I think you'll be surprised, or will be surprised, say even 5-7 years from now, that students we thought were never ever going to make it just didn't have the right tool in their toolbox that we finally gave them to be able to be an outstanding citizen and a great person to get involved in some sort of work that they love, and are very, 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 very good at it.
Yeah, I think just
Yeah.
to kind of echo some of the points that have been made, we're really seeing the importance and the power of collaboration between education and industry. So PEB, Partners for Education and Business, we work to bridge that gap because that has been such a gap for many years.
Mhm.
And education is definitely coming leaps and bounds and getting closer to where I think we need to be. And Brockport is really ahead of the curve, being that New York State has come down with these requirements for portrait of the graduate that are already kind of being implemented. So very exciting to hear. But one thing that we're just finding is that schools can't do it alone and industry partners can't do it alone. We all have to kind of work together in this kind of ecosystem, and those collaborations really make authentic experience for students because they're seeing what it's really like in the real world. They're not just hearing about it or seeing what it's like on TV, because that's where a lot of us go awry. We think we see Law and Order and we're like, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer, when it's not really the case. Really important also is just, again, building those relationships. Those have been kind of said, but students can start building their network when they're still in high school, and employers are very eager to get into the classroom. And we're seeing that many of the schools we're working with, they want to get in front of students so that students are exposed to the opportunities that are right here in their backyard. They don't have to leave after they graduate. I think when education and industry, when we all are working together, Shauna was talking about the kind of workforce development ecosystem. The whole community is really going to thrive when we're all kind of on the same page working together. Students know what opportunities are out there. Employers have a kind of say, if you will, in the curriculum, because they're, in this world, and they know what they're looking for. And if they know that Brockport's preparing students to come and work for them, they're more likely again to hire those folks. So just exciting to hear that we're all starting to, work together more, and the momentum is definitely going in the right direction.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Couple themes I'm just hearing as you're all talking are, for our students, our problem solving and adaptability, and helping kids just to be able to build those skills. And it also sounds like there's different steps along the career exploration path that we can be sharing with our students at every level. Even elementary, there's certain pieces where you can start to have them start to understand who they are and what different careers are. So that's something that we're really trying to build backwards and really have as a piece of what we're doing with our students all through the continuum.
Yeah, if I could just put a plug in for the Career and Technical Center. There, we often say when I take people on tours, there's 20 plus industries under one roof right here in Spencerport. So you can literally walk around this building, bring students and families to the building, and we have a expo night on November 5th where it's open at night, and you can bring people around and they can at least see the spaces that exist around this building, which is an opportunity to experience 20 plus different industries. So it's really like taking an opportunity, even if they don't go to CTE or to, right, it's just exposing students to and exposing families to all of those different high demand industries.
I just got a postcard about that in the mail, actually.
Good,
I have an 8th grader,
good.
so we just got that postcard.
Bring your family, bring your neighbors.
So I love that. So Brandon, you had talked about bringing this all the way back to pre-K. Mark Siciliano, you want to kind of lean in a little bit to what that looks like here in Brockport, from those bands from the earliest years all the way through high school?
A few ways that we've been thinking about them: general language like discover, deepen, transform, where you kind of think about those phases. But a lot of it is just based on the research underpinnings from career connected learning that we've looked closely at. And one thing that emerged from us is this idea that we were able to borrow from the Colorado Department of Education: learning about work, learning through work, and learning at work as an interesting framework. And so when we think about that K-5 space, it's Brandon saying that exposure, like getting kids to just understand what they're doing and how that relates to work, learning about work. And then that learning through work phase really starts to shift a little, where the learning perhaps comes from an industry partner. What's an actual problem or challenge that somebody is working on, that's grappling with in the real environment? How does that move its way into a classroom environment where kids then are tackling that same problem in the context of their disciplines? And then ultimately, I think what everybody's been talking about here, what's the goal is, we want kids to learn at work. We want them to get out into the field, learn in those environments. We want the employers in working alongside kids in our building. So those phases have been really useful in helping us think about how this becomes a pre-K-12 model, and not just something that happens as kids are starting their secondary journey, but really this is something that happens early on through learning about, through, and at work.
Really
I think that's going to be key for us as we move forward, because it will help everybody be grounded in the work. And, we often talk about graduation isn't a high school celebration. It's a culmination of a pre-K-12 celebration. And, every staff member along a student's journey has an impact on where that student goes when they cross the stage and beyond. And so our goal is to make sure that our entire learning community is invested in a place where they're going to want to make sure that they are a part of something and have meaningful impact on every student's journey and story here in Brockport. So it does start at a young age. I'd like to thank all of you for coming on today. It's always great to have great conversation. I've learned a long time ago, you don't need to be the smartest person in a room. You need to be in a room full of smart people. And today I feel like I'm in a room full of smart people. So I truly appreciate everyone's thoughts today and everything that you're doing in your roles. And, I want our listeners and our community to see these are the connections that we are making here in Brockport to make sure that our students here have access and opportunities to whatever it is they need. And even if they don't know they need it yet. So that's the key. It will be there for them when they're ready.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
This is
Let's put one
important.
final plug in for our Monroe to Orleans BOCES programs, our MACNY apprenticeship initiatives. We're excited for those partnerships. And we also always appreciate our partnership with Left Bank Consulting and Mark Siciliano. So thanks to all of you for sharing your expertise today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yep. So thanks, Sean and Mark, and Emily. This career connected learning really isn't just a trend. It's necessary for preparing our students for success in college, career, and honestly, life in general. So with that, thank you for listening today to the BCSD Learning and Leading podcast. And as always, we promote our listeners to continue to stay curious. Have a great day, everyone.